Zach Lowe, who worked with us at Grantland, who I think was the best all-around basketball person who did this in the NBA, was let go by ESPN today. It was a layoff.
ESPN doesn't have room for Zach Lowe. Who does ESPN have room for?
ESPN just made one of their most shocking decisions that I think I have ever seen. I mean, especially considering the context of this situation, I would have never expected ESPN to make this move. And it's causing a lot of fans to worry because it's a complete 180 from what they were doing about a decade ago. And you can tell a lot about ESPN based off of the personalities they're choosing. So before we get into the content, we are less than 5,000 subscribers away from 1 million subscribers. Make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help us get there. And now that we get all that out of the way, do the intro. We made over $500 this past weekend by playing Prize Picks. I posted both of my picks before Sunday and Monday Night Football on my Instagram story at TheFlightMike. If you aren't signed up for Prize Picks, use my promo code microphone to get a free $50 when you place an entry of $5 or more. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1212. What's going on, everybody? ESPN has recently undergone a lot of changes in regards to its commentary and analyst group. About a month and a half ago, my asshole of an evil brother, Microphone, who's about to pass me in subscribers, by the way. Yes, he's 50,000 subscribers away and he made his YouTube channel 8 years after I did. Don't let him do that. But he made a video on the fact that ESPN decided to lay off Robert Griffin III. And honestly, there is this one theory in that video that I particularly found pretty funny, and it's the fact that maybe they did it because of the croissant video. Bro, the look on his face is absolutely insane as he's filling his mouth with this croissant. I mean, the craziest part about this is how he literally decided to put 6 inches of this croissant in his mouth before biting it. And the man definitely knew what he was doing here. I mean, this is just such great engagement bait. And he doubled down on it with this video afterward.
For the love of God, this picture is going viral right now. Stay with me. This is a giant croissant from Felipe Contassini, Paris. And my wife said, you know what? Why not? Let's try it out. Seems like it's gonna be delicious. So we took this picture, thinking nothing of it. We're just having a great time in Paris, and then when in Paris, you must croissant. Or as we captioned it, it's always croissant o'clock in Paris. But then the internet got a hold of it, and boy, oh boy, did they go to work. I guess a man can't enjoy a croissant with his wife and post it on the internet anymore. I will spare you the memes, but you can go find them for yourself. But just know that this croissant was absolutely delicious. Our matching pants even made it even better. I will never shy away from having a good time with my wife with the croissant in hand. Peace.
And although I don't think that's 100% the reason why ESPN let go of RG3, it was still interesting that ESPN decided to let go of a former Heisman Trophy winner who had knowledge about the game of football and college football, despite him still having some time left on his contract. But it wasn't just football that took a huge hit. ESPN has been laying off some very popular basketball analysts and commentators since 2023. I mean, Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson were both laid off in 2023, which obviously frustrated a lot of fans because the trio of Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, and Jalen Rose was very fun to watch on national TV. And they did their best to try to rotate some new pieces in. I mean, there's a period of time where they had Doris Burke and Doc Rivers joining Mike Breen before Doc Rivers got the Milwaukee Bucks job that he so coveted.
And I've never done this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I can tell you that just from the day and a half. But it's going to be a challenge.
I told our owners when they called, I said, I think I don't understand why you're doing this.
But if you thought the 2023 layoffs were really bad, if you thought the assets that ESPN lost in 2023 was really bad, just compare that to who they lost in 2024. JJ Redick, who was honestly one of my favorite individuals in the podcasting space and in the commentary space, primarily because he had no problem cooking Stephen A. Smith.
I don't know whether to believe that you believe what you're saying.
I do believe
that's crazy.
Well, it's not crazy.
And cooking his ex-teammates as well.
There's a pattern of behavior with Zion that we are seeing again and again. And look, I was his teammate. I can describe him as a detached teammate.
Went from college basketball superstar to NBA role player to podcaster slash analyst to coaching the Los Angeles Lakers and smiling and nodding at anything that LeBron James tells him to do. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit of a pessimistic Laker fan. My apologies. Maybe this first year head coach that has no prior coaching experience is exactly what my favorite basketball team needs to finally beat the Denver Nuggets! And honestly, no one would blame JJ Redick for making such a decision, and nobody could point the blame finger for losing JJ Redick to head coaching. I mean, it's a remarkable opportunity, and the Los Angeles Lakers even said that they view JJ Redick as their version of Eric Spoelstra, even though Eric Spoelstra was part of the Miami Heat organization from very early on, working himself up from a video coordinator all the way to head coach. I don't know how he drew that parallel, but whatever. They actually believe this, and I hope they're right. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but I hope they're right. In regards to ESPN, things will go from bad to worse. Why do you watch ESPN? How did you discover ESPN? Personally, when I was a wee lad, I discovered SportsCenter very, very young. I would turn on SportsCenter each and every morning as I was getting ready for school, and they would give me my daily dose of sports news. They'd be the most reliable source to do it. They'd bring credible sources to back up the news, so there were no questions of whether or not the news was fake or not. As a matter of fact, back then, nobody really questioned the media the way that we do today. So credibility wasn't a problem. It was just they would bring me the news that I would like in an easily digestible format, and from time to time they would also do deep dives on my favorite teams. They tell me about a young prospect coming out of high school that was going to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. They would tell me things like the Los Angeles Lakers were considering trading Shaquille O'Neal, and then you would have respected personalities like Dan Patrick, Trey Wingo, or the late great Stuart Scott telling you the news and adding a nice little flair of personality to it. And as time went on and social media became more and more prominent in our lives, obviously ESPN had to make changes, and they did their absolute best to stay on top of these changes. And one of the ways they decided to stay on top of this change by hiring the individual that was notorious for his ability to break NBA news before anybody else, Adrian Wojnarowski, who for some reason has me blocked on Twitter till this day, was so good at his job that he was literally spoiling NBA draft picks before they were announced. Woj became a very powerful individual in the industry, trading inside information with executives and agents in return for additional information, moving himself up in the world as an individual that could not only break news stories, but be a valuable asset to general managers and agents alike. You wanted to know what a competing team was offering a player? You hit up Woj. You want to test the water on what the value of your client would be as an agent? You'd hit up Woj. Or if you're a fan of the sport and you just wanted to know a trade the moment it happened, well, you turned on your notifications on Woj's Twitter account. Woj became so popular that ESPN hired him as an on-screen personality in 2017, which at first admittedly was a little awkward, but he became a staple during the trade deadline, during NBA free agency, and the NBA draft, and honestly, he hit on some of his analysis. I know I was making fun of him for this at the time, mainly because I felt like the over-gassing of prospects gets a little annoying, but he hit this right on the head.
This is the most highly anticipated player to ever enter the NBA, and this is maybe not only the greatest prospect in the NBA's history, maybe the greatest prospect in the history of team sports.
Wow. But ultimately, Adrian Wojnarowski decided to leave ESPN so he could become the general manager at St. Bonaventures, which was his alma mater in college, which is a remarkable opportunity for him considering how the landscape of college sports is changing, considering the fact that NIL deals completely changed the way recruiting is done in collegiate sports. As a matter of fact, my of a twin brother microphone made a video recently on a starting quarterback that decided to quit on his team because he wasn't paid $100,000 in NIL money. If you guys want to go check that out after this video. It was a no-brainer for Woj, honestly, because this is a job where you don't really get much sleep. I mean, we've seen Shams' phone during NBA free agency constantly. We saw how Shams reacted when Kay Adams took his phone as a joke on the Up and Adams show.
This is Sham's phone, everybody.
This is a crime that's being
Listen,
committed.
you were not playing man coverage on your phone. Welcome to. You want to talk a little NFL? Is this where all the secrets are?
Yeah.
Can we just get a close up of Shams and how nervous he is that I have the cell phone?
Being an insider is a job that gets you very little sleep, very little vacation time, and even on vacation, you're still constantly on your phone trying to figure out what's going on in the league that you're tapped into. General managers and agents are hitting you up constantly, so I don't really blame Woj for retiring retiring from this life so he could leverage his connections in a way where he could actually build his own basketball team. And who knows, for all you know, maybe Woj ends up in an NBA front office someday. Regardless, I know this is going to sound a little crazy, but being a general manager of St. Bonaventures is a lot less tasking than being the leading NBA insider. So I can't blame Woj for making that decision either. So considering the state of ESPN and their NBA program, let's do a little recap. Currently, they lost the leading ESPN insider in Adrian Wojnarowski and JJ Redick, who provided the most insightful and engaging analysis and was a breath of fresh air from hot take culture that was polluting the sports world. But now, ESPN just made one of their most questionable decisions, and a lot of fans don't know why. According to Andrew Marchand, ESPN has officially laid off Zach Lowe. And this is terrible. I mean, I think out of everything, this was probably their worst move to date. Primarily because it gives you an idea of the direction that ESPN is heading in. You get an idea of what ESPN is willing to invest their capital in. And look, I don't want to make it sound like I don't like the individuals I'm about to talk about, because, for instance, Pat McAfee's jersey's on my wall, and Stephen A. Smith is one of my biggest influences. But ESPN reportedly signed Pat McAfee to a 5-year, $85 million deal so they could broadcast his show on ESPN. And there's nothing against Pat McAfee. I think he's very, very entertaining. And as a matter of fact, I watch him consistently. And again, his jersey is on my wall. I think he's opened up a lot of doors in the content creator space, and I think his journey in the NFL was very unique and interesting. And I have nothing against Stephen A. Smith as well, because I find him very entertaining as well. But in my opinion, there's two different types of personalities on ESPN. There are the entertainment guys that know a thing or two about ball. They're not completely oblivious to ball, but they're primarily there to put a smile on your face, bring the energy, make you laugh, and also give their takes on sports. But they're not necessarily doing a major deep dive on the sport. And then there are the individuals like Zach Lowe, an individual that has the uncanny ability to not only give you an idea of what is happening in the NBA, but also tell you why it's happening in the NBA and tell you what teams can do to rectify their problems. I've learned so much just by reading Zach Lowe's posts, and in my opinion, I thought he was the most talented NBA journalist that ESPN had, which is why I'm so confused about this, because when you lose Adrian Wojnarowski and JJ Redick, you would think if anything, Zach Lowe is going to be promoted. The craziest part about this is Stephen A. Smith's contract is about to expire, and look at what he wants.
I'm not getting specific as it pertains to numbers, because only a fool discusses his own negotiations while negotiating. I would ask respectfully, pay attention to the industry, see what people are getting paid, see how much money they're making and what they're bringing to the table. Dak Prescott just signed a contract for $240 million. He's making $60 million a year. He made sure to get...
I know, he's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
Who has won 2 playoff games in 8 years. I've been number 1 for 12. I'm sorry. In our respective industries, I win. And I'm fully aware of what I'm worth, and I will never apologize to that for anybody.
It just bothers me that ESPN is cutting personalities like Robert Griffin III, Zach Lowe, Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson. I understand needing to keep Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee because they are 2 giants of the industry. I approve of the decision to bring on Shannon Sharpe. I thought that was a brilliant idea as well. But for the love of God, can someone explain to me why the Kendrick Perkins still has a job? I don't think he falls into either category. I don't think he brings in anything insightful, and I don't find him entertaining. It just blows my mind that ESPN decided to cut Zach Lowe to save $1 million, but they're keeping Kendrick Perkins that makes $1.5 million as an analyst. And it just gives you an idea of the direction that ESPN is trending in. I mean, 10 years ago, you could turn on your TV and you would actually get some pretty solid analysis from ESPN. Don't get me wrong, you'll also get Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith yelling at each other, but that was more for entertainment value. You'll get a little bit of everything, and honestly, as a fan of sports that could watch individuals yell at each other about sports all day, I like the fact that I could get Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless yelling at each other, and then I could wait a couple of hours and I could get some more insightful analysis from a different program. But now it seems like ESPN is trending in one direction and one direction only, and that's just doubling down on hot take culture of mad things like this.
The criteria for the MVP and how the goalposts move, It's only 3 guys that won the MVP that wasn't top 10 in scoring. What do those guys have in common? I'll let it sit there and marinate. You think about it.
Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about all this, man? You don't really have a choice but to watch ESPN, but it's really sad to see the direction they're going in. I like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, do you know whose career is officially over? Markelle Fultz. He still hasn't been signed to a team. He was the #1 overall pick in 2017, drafted over the likes of Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell, forgot how to shoot a basketball, and now he's unsigned in NBA free agency. We have a whole video on his rise and fall, and I'll leave it in the end screen and meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.